The truth is, most people don't do anything other than vote. Most people do not ever make a contribution. Most people do not ever knock on a voter's door. You're lucky if you get them to vote. So those that are prepared to do more than that, they're golden. They're the people who put together the momentum that lets you win the election.
Bem-vindo a mais um episódio do podcast. Hoje vamos fazer aqui em inglês, porque temos um convidado muito especial. Welcome to IFLCast, Acendendo as Luzes, turning on the lights. Today we're recording on the 9th edition of the Forum Liberty and Democracy from IFLSP with the theme Protagonism in Adverse Times. If you're new here, IFLSP, Institute for the Formation of Leaders, São Paulo, is an independent association, private and apartisan. Therefore, our institute has the objective to form the leaderships that are going to build a society more prosperous and free. If you identify with this objective, or let's say challenge, you can follow us on our social media or YouTube channel at IFLSP, and we have a selective process that opens twice a year, both in the middle and at the end. Now, our main theme, building leaders in the public sector. And for that, we have very special guests to talk about it deeply. We have Rafael Lima, the founder of the channel Ideias Radicais, Radical Ideas, and counselor to the Free Market Institute, Instituto Livre Mercado. That's our guest here with you. And, of course, Morton Blackwell, founder and president of the Leadership Institute in Washington. He trained more than 250,000 people in the U.S. and abroad. Also, he was a special assistant to President Ronald Reagan at the White House. And with me for this talk, I have a co-host, Mariana de Oliveira Sinicio, who is also here and is also the president of IFL Brasilia. And your host, as always, me, Luiz Guilherme Prioli, leader associate at IFLSP, director of growth marketing and commercial at the health tech Polaris, graduated from Bentley University in Boston with a specialization in Georgetown. I want to thank the both of you coming here today, especially you coming from so far.
Happy to be here.
I feel like that's going to add a lot because we are in the year of elections. And we are also talking about leadership in the public sector, right? Something that's very sometimes forgotten. And what would you say constitutes a leader in the private sector, in the public sector?
Well, the purpose of our institution is to increase the number and the effectiveness of activists and leaders in government, politics, and in the news media. I would say when I started my Leadership Institute in 1979 in the United States, every other conservative and libertarian educational group focused just on the important job of teaching about issues and philosophy and public policy questions. Very important stuff. But I decided what I could do that was most useful would be to find people who already are reasonably conservative in the sense Ronald Reagan was a conservative. That is, people who favor limited government and free enterprise and strong national defense and traditional moral values. And so that's what I did. And so we look for people who have their heads screwed on right fairly well and leave to other groups teaching them about issues in philosophy. But we teach people the skills, how to organize, how to communicate, how to raise money for your nonprofit organization, how to appear well on television. So we teach skills. That is not an easy task because a great number of people who are motivated by their intense philosophical commitment think it is beneath their dignity to study mere technique because it has no philosophical content. And so that is a fence we've got to cross over before we can take people who are philosophically committed and then make them effective.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a lot of synergy with what Rafael has been doing, right? Rafael with his Ideias Radicais, which has grown way to be way more than a channel. I just briefly introduced him. He's now training young people that are going for positions of.
I could do it if you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
so Ideias Radicais started as a YouTube channel and is mostly known as a social media platform. We do have a presence on YouTube, on Twitter, Instagram, that stuff. But we slowly started working in actually making the ideas happen in reality. So, and we realized just what you said. There are a lot of people who understand the importance of the liberty and values and all the technical stuff. But okay, now you're in charge. Now you have a position. What are you going to do with it? You're going to have to talk with people who don't like your ideas, who don't like you, who have other interests. How are you going to make this happen? Or you have to run a campaign. So you can't just rely on getting elected on the votes of people who read Mises. You're going to have to reach other people. You're going to have to hire and manage and execute a team. You're going to have to find a methodology and execute that. That's all a lot of other skills. So we started training people in that, and especially in the context of elections. Our focus now in that sense is training candidates and finding good electoral methodologies for them to follow. How to get elected in this situation. You're a more internet guy. Okay, so here's techniques that work. Here's how to manage your team. Here's how to raise funds for your specific idea or where to find them. So yes, that's a very big problem. And there's something that I realized back in November 2018, just after we elected our first officials for Congress. So it was in October 2018 was the first round of elections, in federal elections. In November, I was talking to them and I realized we have a huge human resources problem. Because and it's going to increase because in 2020 we're going to have municipal elections. In 2022 we're going to elect like 3-4 times more than that.
Yes.
There aren't enough people out there to be cabinet managers, to be the technical teams, to be the campaign teams. We don't have today enough campaign managers to run the elections this year. This is a big bottleneck. So
Well, I can assure you we have found that same problem in the United States. I began in 1993 to hold a week-long school for campaign managers in the United States, and we've done it since 1993. But this year in the United States, there are more people who are conservative or pro-liberty candidates than any other year in the history of the United States. Enormous numbers of people, many of them running for Republican nomination against each other because it's viewed, perhaps correctly, that there's going to be a big win for the Republican Party this year. So there are a lot of people who are running. But that means every one of those campaigns has to have a campaign manager. And so I started this summer a newer operation, and it's an intense 9-day school, which we call Campaign Leadership College. We did it last month. It worked out very well. My plan is to have 9 or 10 more of those 9-day schools conducted between now and the summer of 2024. But there's always a shortage, but the shortage, at least now in the United States, is worse than it has ever been because there's so many people who are philosophically sound who are wanting to run for office.
yeah, and it's a nice problem to have, right?
Right. We call that a problem of success.
Yeah, it's the problem. My restaurant's full. I need more tables, so that's good. But we realize this problem too in Brazil, and for what I see internationally, I think that's common. I've seen that in Portugal. Portugal has today Iniciativa Liberal, which is a liberal initiative, which is essentially Novo or the Libertarian Party, something like that. they're finding the same problem. Their system produces less. Their electoral system is a closed list, so it has less candidates, but still they have that management problem. I think that's widespread. And what I would ask you is, we have different strategies. We do the follow-ups on the candidates. So we usually work with a candidate for 3 to 12 months before the campaign. So it's a really focused thing. While you do the week-long seminars, have you done? Because I mean, you've been in that space for 40 years. I've been in that space for 4 years. So have you tried the other thing? How does that work?
Well, part of the problem is when you train people to be campaign managers, and they turn out to be very good campaign managers, they don't stay in the job market to be campaign managers in the future. Some of them are hired by the people whom they elect, and those people are not available anymore. Some of those people become consultants, and they want to offer services to many different candidates and get money from many different candidates. But a well-run campaign has got to be a campaign manager. You can't run it. The candidate generally shouldn't run a campaign, and a campaign shouldn't be run by a committee. I mean, they said that a camel is a horse that was designed by a committee. It's not. It's not going to be. They're not going to look very good. But there's this constant drain reduces the number of campaign managers, which means there's got to be an increased flow of campaign managers.
And today you have a bigger problem, which is not just a campaign manager. You have to have your social medias guy, your local mobilization and street campaign. You have to have your marketing guy, the financial. It's a decent sized campaign in Brazil is 10 to 20 people, plus the activists as mobilizers. This could go up to 100 to 100 people easily. Right. In a big, relevant 100,000, 200,000 vote campaign. How's that in the U.S.?
Well, there's a problem in the U.S. that probably I think you face in Brazil as well. You wind up having people get in charge of political campaigns who decide that it's in their interest to spend all the resources of the campaign on paid advertising and do not invest money in organizing at the grassroots, identifying supporters, organizing young people, getting people out to vote on election day, because there's no money for the consultant in that. But I presume in Brazil, as in most other countries, the consultant who orders the television ad or the online services or the newspaper ads gets a commission. In the United States, it's generally 15% of the cost of the ad goes into the pocket of the consultant, which means you have a campaign that has its resources spent on the air war, as it were, and very little on the ground war. And you need to have a healthy balance between what's going on the ground with people and what is doing in paid advertising.
Yeah, what you mentioned is what we call, in my team, what we call difference between feeling like you're campaigning and campaigning. Because sometimes when you do ads, I'm all over the place, I'm on the TV, I'm the social media, you really feel like you're in your campaign, but are you? Is this actually turning over? And running a grassroots team, running door knocking activists, you're gonna have to manage a few dozen not very well paid people, so they're not gonna be that motivated. They're gonna be like a simpler workforce, and management of that is annoying. It doesn't very much feel like you're in campaign. You're gonna be mostly talking with people who aren't that much interested in you, which is good because you don't want to be spending a lot of time talking to people who are already interested in you. You have already that vote, so go find the other one. And that is campaigning, but it doesn't feel like that. It's kind of boring. So I realized that a few candidates, they do the thing where they really feel like they're campaigning. They want to feel, being on the TV and big spending, but that grassroots part doesn't work very well. And what we found in Brazil is, by doing the data analysis of the last two campaigns in the municipal and the federal, is that usually, except the outliers, they were famous or this or that, usually it's $2 to $1 or reais or whatever in either one. So there are very few campaigns who break those mold. The few that break go to 3 to 1. So it's either your internet and media presence $2 to 1 or grassroots $2 to 1. But it's never too skewed. It's always a compound on those. Is that what you find, or?
I think that the ideal thing is to be within that range. But unfortunately, if you have a greedy consultant, he'll spend 90% of your budget on paid advertising and maybe 10% on grassroots organizing and doing things where you're directly interacting with people and adding volunteers to your organization. It is an awful problem, and it's the bane of the existence for principled conservatives in the United States to have a good conservative candidate take on as a campaign consultant somebody who does not believe in organizing people. I mean, it's crazy, but you do have people who make a lot of money by doing that.
Yeah, but it's the incentive, right? When you talked about the commission, I was like, there's no way this doesn't exist in Brazil. So I think it's a problem. And yeah, of course, the incentive is going to be there, and it's going to skew the elections. That's really bad. You should find a way to get rid of that somehow. That's not really a good incentive.
Well, one way to improve the situation is to increase the number of consultants who are principled conservative and pro-liberty people.
Pushes down the price.
Yeah, well, increase the number, that pushes down the price, but it also it means that there will be more campaigns run by people who share the philosophical viewpoint of your candidate. I mean, some campaign consultants are notoriously opportunistic, and they will work for anybody who can pay them. They'll work for a Marxist if they can pay him money. A respectable political consultant wouldn't do that, but there are an awful lot who do that.
So you have to go for the building. You have to build the values first, and then you train them as a campaign manager to avoid going for the other team.
You mentioned that I've trained 250,000 people, and that's no exaggeration. We hit that number in July of this year. I have found that it is much easier to take a committed, principled conservative who believes in liberty and teach that person the skills that are necessary to be effective in government politics and the media than it is to take a really skilled person who knows well how to organize and communicate and teach that person to be principled.
That seems like a reasonable assumption.
Yeah. We found that as well. And again, you have the financial incentive. If you have like a complete mercenary who is a really good campaign manager who has no principles, and you say, whoa, here's a few ideas, come work for these principles and make 10 times less what you're making today. How about that? Yeah, no. That's not going to happen.
But I disagree with you. I think in general, we have many volunteers to make it work. How do you motivate people to give themselves and volunteer in these campaigns?
The most commonly successful means of involving people is to ask them to become involved. I mean, I got my start in youth politics, working to organize students for conservative Republican candidates. And I would go to a college campus and set up a table. People come by, I'd say, are you a Republican? Or I'd say, or are you supporting Congressman Smith for the Senate or whatever? And some would, and I'd say, well, would you like to come and to the meeting and volunteer? And some people will do it just because you've asked them to. And I think that's the single biggest source. Also, in every country, there are groups that are reasonably well organized, neighborhood groups, professional groups, and you get somebody who's active in one of those groups, that person can recruit others from their group to come and work in your campaign. The truth is, most people don't do anything other than vote. Most people do not ever make a contribution. Most people do not ever knock on a voter's door. You're lucky if you get them to vote. So those that are prepared to do more than that, they're golden. They're the people who put together the momentum that lets you win the election.
Yeah, that's the same thing we find in here. Like when we talk to candidates and we say, well, call your friends, call your people, and we ask them, they're like, oh, I'm going to call my friend and ask him to be involved with politics. You know, that's just weird. He's
Right.
not going to want it. Well, you want it. And he has that idea. And
Well-
if a person has an idea of a world that he wants and the world's not that, he wants to do something to make that happen. So if you give to me, look, you just have to,
Well-
go and do that simple thing. He's going to do it.
When you're working with a friend, trying to get the friend to help support the candidate that you're supporting, the most powerful thing to say to that friend is, as a personal favor to me, would you come and work for this candidate? That is more powerful than the political philosophy that's involved. As a personal favor to me, a lot of people will do it.
Straight up loyalty. You're going for the most loyal person you can get. That's the person who's doing this exclusively as a favor to you.
Yeah,
Everything that comes besides that, it's a bonus.
that's right.
Yeah, but there is that human thing. Like what we think usually is that this is politics, and it's not. It's really friendship and social bonds. You're more inclined to vote for a person if he's your friend. You're more inclined to work for someone if there is trust there. Trust is a really important thing. But I think it boils down to when you have people with very strong values, they're willing to go to rather great extents to make that happen. And it's not really just a conservative or libertarian thing. See the socialists, they do that too. They're really motivated. And what it's lacking in our movement really is the go here, do this, do that, talk to this person, the procedure on how to do a campaign. And I think there is also, I don't know, because my impression is that campaigns in the US, they're more stock. And people kind of understand better how they work. It might be just my skewed vision of this. Where in Brazil, people know a lot less about how campaigns work. So they don't think it works a lot. So when you say
I agree.
this method works, we've done it, people trust them. And, okay, this is actually going to work. Something that I say a lot is half of winning is looking like you're going to win. So people just get engaged in that. This works, okay, then I'm going to knock on $100. I'm going to go and talk to people for about a week as a volunteer. They're going to do it. You just need to
basically
give the clear
cam-
instructions.
Our campaigning structure has been imported from the United States, right? They've been doing it more professionally for much longer periods of time.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where it comes from, that feeling. Somewhat.
Well,
I don't know.
I learned
don't?
something about human nature 50 years ago when I got married. My wife had a 6-year-old son from her first marriage. And that first year, my stepson and my wife and I would sit and watch television. And my wife was a big fan of football. And her son was enthusiastically watching that television station. He was very excited. He was cheering and cheering. And then I suddenly realized that this 6-year-old boy would shift sides in the middle of the game. And he would start cheering with the other side. And he would switch sides when the side that he was on went behind and the other side was now ahead. And this 6-year-old boy instinctively switched his loyalty and in order to be on the winning side. That's part of human nature. And that's in politics too. One of the most important things for a campaign to work for is to persuade as many people as possible that your candidate is going to win, because that in and of itself will persuade some people to support you for no other reason than they think they want to be with the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think working with campaigns teaches you a lot about the human being, like how people. Something I tell my candidates, like you have to first of all give up on the idea that the reasons that people vote for other people are logical. Like you expect, oh, this person believes that he was worked in this is this, therefore he should vote like this. No,
Well,
He may try to explain.
You have to do a balancing act. It is absolutely impossible to put together a majority in an election to vote for a candidate where everyone in this majority agrees with everybody else on every issue. It just doesn't work that way. Because some people will be on the more conservative side on one issue and the more left-wing side on another issue. So it's always a balancing act. And if people expect to only vote for candidates whom they agree with in every single aspect, they're not going to have very many people ever to vote for. So it's a balancing act. And it's, on the whole, this candidate is going to do more of what I'm interested in and than the other candidate. And so forth. And you're not going to find somebody perfect, so you got to support the candidate who is least imperfect.
Well, I want to also get this. We're talking a lot about the public sector, right? But we also have the private sector, who are our sponsors. I want to thank our sponsors, Goldratt Consulting, that's right behind me. Goldratt is an Israeli multinational company that uses the theory of constraints, TOC, to help clients throughout many sectors compete through the generation of value and operational excellence. I don't know if you know about Goldratt Consulting. You have ever heard about?
Heard about it here today.
Oh, cool. Tal, he said he read a book about Goldratt because he's from Israel and he wrote a book called, I think, The Objective. Yeah, no, the goal, something like that. And we also have another sponsor that after this paradigm post-COVID, people started to understand that it's not enough to just look healthy. You have to be healthy, right? Which is why our sponsor Polaris has connected a team of professionals from big companies that are going to open the doors to a market that supplements medicines and medications that are on the right dose for you, because to give to the Brazilians what they deserve, to live more and better. So if your doctor or your nutritionist has sent you a prescription, talk to one of your concierges through WhatsApp so you can receive your medicine or supplements in customized packages with a 100% certificate of purity. If you don't, you can also go on our website and fill out the questionnaire so you can find out which supplements and nutrients are the ones your body needs. And also we have after here, we have a gift for you, one of these supplement packs that are customized for immunity.
Well, thank you.
So it's just vitamin D, a well-immune compound, and a vitamin C.
Well, nutrients, I'm sure, help a lot. People, as I get older, say, what's the secret of longevity? And I say, I believe the secret of longevity is to choose your ancestors carefully.
And you talk about, let's say, nutrients, and you say that nutrients are important, but most people, let's assume that they neglect the tiny things that are supposed to be the nutrients. Yep. What would you say are the nutrients that people are neglecting in building leaderships on the public sector?
We need to have more people take the principles of limited government seriously. If there's not a constant support and increase in the numbers of people who are becoming involved fighting for limited government, free market, traditional values, then the people on the left are going to triumph. There are people on the left who are actively hostile to anybody who believes in traditional values and anybody who believes in private property and anybody who believes in limited government. And if these people I'm one of those people. I think you all are among those people. But if we don't work hard, then the people on the left who have the determination to do it will beat us every time in politics, and in some cases literally destroy us. People need to exercise the liberty that we have in politics to participate in behalf of our principles.
Well, I think that's a great closing statement, Morton. Thank you so much for having you, Rafael and Mariana, here with us today. And I look forward to talking to you guys in another podcast. Also, if you don't follow IFLSP, you should definitely do it. If you want more content like this, you can also follow IFL Brasilia, IFL BSB.
BSB.
Yeah, right, at IFL BSB. And your time to do your pitch, Rafael.
Well, just follow
Where can people
Radicais, I guess.
follow you? They can watch you where? on
Just
your
search
YouTube?
Ideias Radicais on anything. I'm there.
Okay, go radical. Thank you, Morton.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.